Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Of course, we are looking at Nawaz Sharif's return and the implications of the former Prime Minister's return. Also, we'll be talking about the legal complications in the wake, of course, of the bail that has been granted both from the Islamabad High Court and the Law Court. We'll be talking about the future for PMLN as it stands and will stand after the former Prime Minister's return, the narrative of the PMLN, what it's going to be after Mia Saab's return when he speaks to the people. What kind of a crowd is the PMLN expecting? Is the crowd going to have a bearing on the momentum they want to build for the elections, and how much of it will weigh in for the election day? All of that today on Perspective. A little later on, we'll also be talking about the latest situation as far as the Palestine-Israel war is concerned. Of course, we all know the bombing of the church, and pursuant to that, the challenges, the procurement of aid is proving to be as far as Palestine is concerned. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the fact that, of course, Gaza continues to look at the world to react, and unfortunately there is a clear double standard that is prevalent, that is being seen blatantly in the kind of genocide that we are seeing being practiced in front of us today. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Ammar Ziauddin, who's a legal expert. Thank you for being with us today. We have with us Barrister Safiullah Ghauri, who's a political, also a legal analyst. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have with us, we'll be talking to Dr. Sabir Abu Maryam, who's Secretary General, Palestine Foundation, Pakistan, also Faheem Al-Hamid, who's an Arab journalist, a little later on. Ammar, like I said, as far as Nawaz Sharif Saab's return is concerned, of course we are looking at Mia Saab's return after a lot of rumor mongering, one has to say, and there's a lot that was said about whether he will return or not, what is behind his return. Even now a lot is being talked about what is behind the scenes. As far as the return itself is concerned and its legal side of things, how are you looking at what's happened in Islamabad High Court, the law courts, before his return, and what it signals? Does it signal anything? Is it just due process? Is it just normal? How do you look at it as a lawyer?
I think it's hard to sort of deconstruct the signaling, and based on any event in Pakistan, you can't really make the predictions. Insofar as the legal relief is concerned, it is unprecedented.
Okay.
Here are two convictions, and despite those convictions, Nawaz Sharif Saab is given a protective bail without surrendering, and the arrest warrant in Tosha Khana case before the accountability court is also suspended. So these decisions and these reliefs are unprecedented. And of course, given the scale and the timing of these reliefs, there is room for, as you put it, rumor mongering and speculation. Can we make an informed guess on what is going to transpire in days to come based on this? Of course, we can make those guesses, but can we make predictions based on, say this is going to happen as a virtual certainty? It's very hard in a country like Pakistan.
Okay, I can see, I think Safiullah disagreeing. As in terms of the legal relief.
So the legal relief is in fact, no, I wouldn't agree. It is not unprecedented, it's procedural. Protective bails are given as of right. So Nawaz Sharif's lawyers went to the court. If you look at the whole proceeding, they went to the court, and by the way, this is not my perspective, this is also from PTI lawyers. There's consensus across the board that protective bails are not extraordinary reliefs. These are ordinary things. If you submit to the court and you say, okay, give me enough time to just come to the court, that is what the time of the protective bail is.
And that is what's behind.
And that's all that's been given. So Nawaz Sharif's lawyers went to the court. They said that he wants to appear before the court and argue his case, allow him passage to the court. Until he comes, do not arrest him, he is submitting himself. And so that's really all that happened. In this case, protective bails have been given as of right. It's not something that is
and there's
denied.
A lot of there's precedent for it.
There is almost every case of protective. That's what the word protective means. The idea of a protective bail is that the person wishes to argue their case, but he should just not be arrested. He wishes to appear before the court himself. Now, in this particular case, one of the primary tools and the reasons why they have this is because they say that, for instance, in the Everfield reference in which she has been convicted, Maryam Nawaz has already been acquitted. So the argument here is that he will likely follow a similar fate, although he's an absconder from the law, understandably, but the absconder himself is submitting, and therefore it is likely that he will have gain another right to appeal, and that appeal will be accepted. Since Maryam Nawaz's appeal has been accepted, same fate will follow. And also in the case of Al-Azizia, the co-accused in that case have also been acquitted. So once again, not that I'm a fan of what's happening, I do believe that due process should be followed. Everybody should.
Safiullah, I want to go on, and I think we've spoken about this before also when we talk about NAB. The efficacy of
and
NAB
so
law,
NAB also is,
and the fact that, of course, if these, and it looks like it, these convictions are built on faulty narratives or faulty, whatever one may call it, or they're not legally sound, or they don't have enough meat in them, then they will likely follow what's happened earlier on.
So yeah, and then that also brings me to NAB's perspective. NAB itself, the one organization that had to oppose it, went and said that they do not have a problem.
Okay.
So
that itself may be indicative.
So I mean, if a complainant is not opposing a bail, then why should the court not grant it?
But isn't it about criminal? Let me go to Ammar. Ammar, but isn't it about not so much about the complainant? It's criminal law.
No, but NAB not contesting it is part of the problem. You see, because they are prosecuting him. I wouldn't put Safiullah Saab on the spot like you did, but of course,
I'm here to put all of them.
Yeah, of course, you wouldn't find a precedent for protective bails being given post-conviction. Okay. The examples that you can cite of the politicians from the recent memory also, they are at the stage of investigation or inquiry. This case is entirely different. Here you have 2 convictions, and the appeal was not contested because he voluntarily absented himself from proceeding, declared as absconder, comes back, and his arrest warrant is suspended. This is unprecedented. I mean, there's no harm in admitting it. Fine, we're talking about a person who was Prime Minister 3 times before, and we can argue about equality before the law, but to talk about this relief as being not unprecedented is slightly unfair to our audience as well. So this is unprecedented, but this person is not any ordinary person also, and then we can egg on the debate on this aspect. Yeah.
But is it about equals, or is it about first among equals, or is it about a level playing field, which is being talked about as far as politics is concerned? Because when you talk about a level playing field, it has to be across the board. So there's a lot of debate about that also. Plus, like Safiullah is also saying, the strength of the cases themselves, and how much will that also, we talk about political victimization, we talk about wrong convictions for which there have been, he's been disqualified for life, which is also now 5 years. All of that debate, putting it aside, there's a lot of history behind it, no?
And it is unfortunate, I think, and would we continue to run into these circles is the question.
Okay.
Would our courts be willing stakeholders in what is a political process?
Okay.
There comes a point in time when, as a policy matter, the courts themselves have to decide that they should not palm on the political process or impede it. Insofar as the accountability proceedings are concerned, I have been part of several of them, and I know for a fact that our prosecution, when it comes to accountability matters, it's extremely weak. Okay. So I'll not be surprised, not that I'm trying to preempt the outcomes here, but I'll not be surprised if these convictions are overturned. But that is about the merits. At this stage, the relief is unprecedented.
Okay, fair enough. Safiullah, we talk about the strength of the convictions. We also talk about the fact that, they've chosen to take a step back at this time, realizing that perhaps the case itself will fall. And NAB itself, the constitution of NAB, why it's there, why we haven't been able to do away with it, why political parties have not been able to come, on one page, and whereas, they've been on receiving end of it at one time or the other. All of those are also facts. In terms of how it looks for the PMLN after Mia Saab's return, also, he will then go to court, of course. I mean, that is the process, right? Yeah. He will surrender himself.
Monday he has to appear before the Islamabad
High Court.
And
then what happens? What's the process?
So, okay, so Monday he appears before the Islamabad High Court after the protective bail runs out. He appears, he starts the hearing. There's speculation, and I'll agree with my friend here, that there is speculation that the case will be finished in 2 to 3 hearings. The reason being that, once again, the co-accused have been acquitted. There's probably not enough merit in the case. I am not here to argue for the merit or the demerits of the case. But the fact remains that this is not the biggest problem for Nawaz Sharif. Being arrested is, he very well could have been arrested and he would have been granted a bail instantly based on what the merits would have been. So that is in itself a different debate. Wouldn't have accomplished much of a purpose. What Nawaz Sharif is facing right now, and the real problem he's facing right now, is the disqualification. And that is something he cannot do away with, clearly, because there are 3 convictions that he has against him. One is the Al-Azizia reference, one is the Evenfield reference, and one is the Panama Leaks reference. Now, the amendment in the Election Act, section 232, which says that the disqualification period is for 5 years, does not apply retrospectively. So, convictions that were given before the amendment of the Election Act are still up for grabs. You know, we don't know if that will happen, and that is something, of course, that he will challenge before the court, something that he will try and get benefit from, but then that is something that will also benefit others like Jahangir Tareen. So that is now up for the Supreme Court or Supreme Court to decide how they decide to proceed with it.
But the court has also said that, you know, this is something that will probably come at a stage where he goes and files his papers, and it goes, correct me if I'm wrong, it goes to the returning officer, and then it probably will be an objection the other side will make, and then it will go in court. He can't choose to bring it to the court itself, as I understand this issue of disqualification.
So the issue
Let
of
me take Ammar's opinion and I'll come back. Ammar.
Yeah, not just this, there's another petition pending before Supreme Court. It was filed when S.N. Boone Saab was the president, and it was filed on behalf of Supreme Court Bar Association.
Okay.
You see, the time period for disqualification itself is not prescribed in the Constitution. 62(1)(f) was interpreted, but could well be that a larger bench could revisit those ratios of Jahangir Tareen, of Nawaz Sharif, of Sheikh Rashid, of Imran Khan even, and reconcile that interpretation with the evolving times.
And so that's already in court.
That is pending, and
it can be heard tomorrow.
Yeah, of course.
Depending on the Chief Justice.
Yeah. Or if they move an application for early hearing, so on and so forth. Because we've seen from this Chief Justice that he would like to respond to early hearing applications. This was one of the initial meetings that he had with the bar councils and associations. You know, matters are pending, they keep lying in cold storage, and even when the lawyers move application for early hearing, the matters are not fixed. I'm just saying.
But what do you think if that does happen? And in that eventuality, I understand, you know, it's just at this time we can't be sure it will happen.
Yeah.
But if that does happen and it goes to, you know, an early hearing application is put before their lordships, in this case, what do you think will happen in your opinion as a lawyer? You know, I know it's speculation, but what do you...
I honestly would shy away from giving any particular opinion on the matter. I believe that the courts have, and the reason why I would shy away is because this is a very contentious matter. There's a new Chief Justice, and the new Chief Justice is going to try and restore the sanctity of the courts. Previously, we have seen the courts to be very divisive, very politicized. Making any statement on the matter at this point of time would suggest that the present Chief Justice is also politically inclined towards one side or the other. Maybe.
But isn't it about, I mean, leaving political affiliations aside, leaving the politics of the court itself aside, the legal issue is simple, isn't it?
No, but see, that's what the problem is. So the courts at the moment have complete authority to decide however they want to. They have carte blanche on the matter, and they could interpret it any way. They could extend it, they could reduce it. I'll agree with my friend here that they do in fact right now have a sizable amount of discretion on where they will exercise it.
What is the question? What is the legal question?
The legal question here is, what is the period of disqualification?
No. What is the legal question behind it? Is it about precedence of ordinary law over what's already in the Constitution pursuant to 62(1)(f)? Am I right? Or is the question...
So it is there only to the extent of amendment in the Elections Act, right?
Okay.
So the Elections Act is a primary legislation. Can it undo the judicial interpretation of Article 62(1)(f)? And coincidentally, there's already a petition before Lahore High Court that challenged this law on this basis, that a primary legislation cannot do away with the judicial interpretation of what is a constitution for us. So yes, to the extent of this amendment in the Elections Act, this is the issue. But the primary issue, like Safiullah Saab is saying, is that of disqualification period. But Mahrukh, we can't analyze so many variables to arrive at a conclusion that perhaps Nawaz Sharif Saab will make it to the office, right? So that's too many variables. And I think this is the analysis that one should, restrain oneself from doing. He has to come back. He still has convictions in field. Once those convictions go away, then perhaps his ambitions of holding the public office trigger or come in. Right now, he has to come back.
How soon, in your opinion, can the convictions go away, Safiullah?
No, like
if at all.
Yeah, like I said,
But if the prosecution itself is sort of, let's.
So once again,
we're speculating again, but if the prosecution itself is willing to contend that their case is weak, we've seen yourself, Maryam Nawaz herself has been, acquitted in all these cases.
So Mahrukh, like I said, so 2 to 3 hearings is all it takes. But then once again, here's what the problem is: we're dealing with an extraordinary man. If it was an ordinary man, it would have taken years, for sure. If there was a normal person who came to me, said, there is precedence that my co-accused. In fact, I'm dealing with such cases right now where co-accused have been acquitted, but one of the accused is still suffering despite months and months going on. We're dealing with an extraordinary case. The courts might decide to quicken the pace of the case, may decide to hold daily hearings if they so wish to, weekly, whatever they want. And this could go away in a matter of weeks if the courts so decide. If the courts so decide.
I think this is where a very cautious approach needs to come in from the courts, because they don't want to appear politically divisive again, right? Whenever you're dealing with these political matters, so far as possible, deal with these matters as though they are matters of ordinary litigants. If you sort of put this on a fast track, and there's Imran Khan matter which is pending, and we've seen the pace of that matter going on. So don't fast track it to an extent that people start raising questions.
But he will need, speaking as an observer also, and overall where we are in the sense that before the elections, he's also, whether he's the head of a political party, whether we call him the Qaid or not, he's very much the PMLN. Those factors, whether they, should weigh in with the courts, or whether, but the fact that they will, the optics of it also, like you are saying, may have to be kept in mind, but this is also part of those optics, is it not?
But these factors ought to weigh in for other political players as well. There's another political leader behind prison also. So if you're trying to, you spoke about, and it's a political slogan, right? Level playing field. So level playing field applies to all.
All, okay, fair enough. Ji, Safiullah, what, okay, like I said, let's talk about this. As far as the narrative is concerned, Mian Saab comes back, he is expected to speak to a huge gathering. There is a lot of preparation underway. The PMLN leaders have been, working, mobilizing people, all of that. What you expect now, and the narrative also, that it seems to have been a change as far as the PMLN is concerned, in the kind of narrative that they will now bring to the people.
So as far as the narrative is concerned, obviously they're trying. I saw for the first time a very well-made advertisement today. I was on my mobile, and this ad came in which somebody started, there was a bunch of people having dinner, and they started discussing why you should vote for PMLN, and this guy starts listing down all the wonderful things PMLN has done. Very well made ad, like one of those things that you have normally seen for PTI in the past, and it seems like PMLN is catching up to the media game. But I personally have a huge problem with the way this would be presented, because I will once again reiterate that at the moment, at the very least, he is a convicted criminal. If Imran Khan is a convicted criminal and there is a media gag and you cannot talk about him.
But they're talking about PMLN.
But it doesn't matter. They're talking about Nawaz Sharif returning. So he says, by the way, in that ad, they talk directly about Nawaz Sharif, about how wonderful Nawaz Sharif is and why you should attend Nawaz Sharif Jalsa. That's, sorry, I forgot to give you the complete background of what that ad is. And the benefits of attending the Jalsa and why, and then everybody in the lunch says, oh yes, I want to go to the Jalsa as well. That's what the ad was really about. But that's what the problem is. We are talking about going to the Jalsa of a convicted criminal. Why are there no gag orders here? Why is there not a level playing field here? That is something that I definitely have a problem with. But as far as the Jalsa is concerned, they seem to be doing a fairly good job.
But until very recently, isn't that true for Imran Khan Saab also, that he was allowed to speak to the people until very recently, even when he was convicted in 1 or 2 cases, isn't that true?
So I think you'll have to give it to him. You'll have to optically, it is not fair at this point in time that, one is under the spotlight, the other is, completely ousted from it. But the problem, the question that I wanted to revisit here is, we very casually, this person was a prime minister for 3 terms, right? We've learned from our experiences that these decisions that disqualified elected leaders, have you been able to remove Nawaz Sharif from the politics? No, you haven't. He's going to return and he's going to sort of make another bid for public office. So going back to the argument that I made earlier, our courts need to review what is judicial restraint, because you've made these orders in original jurisdictions. You've had these accountability courts used as your vessels to oust political leaders. But despite those orders, despite those convictions, despite that interpretation, these leaders still stand there. Same goes for Nawaz Sharif, same goes for Imran Khan. You cannot cut short a political career or end it through a court decision. Let the people decide who their leader is.
We may let the people decide, and I think that is what it's going to come to. But the question for the courts is how judicial restraint, right? But they can't do with these reforms. They can't do away with NAB, as I understand.
Of course.
Their hands are tied. It's limited, whatever they can do. And the moment that they venture out, whether they do so, to do right, then it comes to overreach. Right, Safiullah,
No,
there has to be.
100%.
It has to come from political parties. It has to come from a parliament that is empowered to do those things. But the question is, are we still going to be able to get the kind of parliament that will be able to make those decisions?
I don't know. I mean, once again, this is one of those things that I do not have any idea of who will come into the power and what they will do once they come into power. But that's what the problem is. If history has taught us one thing, it is also that every political party that comes into Pakistan strengthens these punitive organizations so that they can punish their opponents. And that has happened time and again with everyone. So no matter what they may say that, we're going to sign a charter of democracy. They may say that we're going to sign a charter of economy, or whatever different charters that they continue to sign. The fact remains that the political system in Pakistan is highly divisive, highly polarized.
But PTI disagreed, correct me if I'm wrong, but PTI disagreed with the amendments to NAB law. Isn't that true? I mean,
just like Noon disagreed to the 18th Amendment.
So that's what I'm saying, that over time, it's either one party or the other refusing to do away with these shackles that invariably are used to tie one or the other political party.
So their position is different in opposition, in government it's different. And I was just reading H.W. Bush's letter to Clinton when he left the office. I'll be rooting for you because your success is our success. I think that's the kind of political culture that we need. It's so polarized. You can't disagree with your political opponent. You disagree with the political opponent, you're disloyal to the state. So the onus is not just on the courts and the parliament, but the individuals as well. Your leaders need to dial it back. I hope that once Nawaz Sharif Saab is back, he will lead the way and he will tone it down. His opponents are not enemies of the state, and I hope that we enter into a new phase of political culture where folks on the other side of the aisle, you can still work with them. And there's so many issues for these parties and all the parties to work on and work together to get us out of this crisis.
But Ammar, we talk about political parties working together. The question is that the kind of palette at this time, and we're going to go into the political now from the legal, the kind of palette, the kind of tone that is set at this time, it doesn't look like one, we don't know what will happen on the election day, but it doesn't look like one particular political party is going to be able to get the kind of numbers they would like. Of course, Maryam Nawaz Sahiba has been saying and talking to the people and categorically saying that, give us those numbers that then we can make those changes. But the question is, it doesn't, we're looking at new political parties at this time, even within Punjab. We are looking at a new political party in KP also. So there's a lot of fragmentation. And what kind of a division are we going to be looking at?
Absolutely. And we have never seen this kind of fragmentation before. That's also what's important.
Yes.
Like to see Punjab with so many different political parties, so many big leaders who have their little clouds and they've made these little fiefdoms, and once again in KP we are seeing these things, and it's entirely likely that we'll see yet another political party. We keep hearing about these things, about how there are certain other people who will break away and continue to form their political parties, and this is something that has happened before leaders have gotten together and decided who they are going to issue tickets to. Once the ticket issuing process starts, there will be many people who get upset. Once again, there will be another cycle of people who start switching parties, trying to form new parties, trying to do something that will get them a seat on the table. But once again, that's what the problem is. I feel like the Pakistani society is at the moment more polarized than it has ever been before. To expect, I would of course want to expect that the Pakistani society gets together on one table. This is great and something that we all wish for. But the indicators show something otherwise. And at the same time, I do want to juxtaposition it with the fact that the caretaker government seems to be doing a fairly good job. We saw for the first time that our current account deficit has gone to an all-time low. He's gone to China, getting aid.
Your dollar is down.
SIFC is expected to bring in billions of dollars. So the stock market has broken previous records. These are all indicators. These are all different signals that the people are looking at. So it's very difficult to, of course, predict, Mahrukh, what the outcome will be. Stalin famously said that it is not the political parties, it is the vote counter at the end of the day who decides who wins the elections. And I think, once again, that's something that we will see in Pakistan.
The fact that, we talk about fairness of the elections, Ammar, we also, the question of how, unfair also, I want to say this openly, the elections can be also is now a debate, in the kind of times that we live in. It's going to be difficult for there to be, they have to be fairly fair. Let's contend. And the kind of situation we're looking at, do you think it's possible that we may, we talk about elections, whether they will happen or not. There's, again, the rumor mongering. There is a lot that is continuously happening, that is being said behind the scenes. Do you think it's a possibility we may be looking at more time as far as the caretaker government itself is concerned,
Which itself is unconstitutional. And this is my fear as well, Mahrukh, that, an ordinary man in the street being disillusioned from our political system. I really hope the elections come and there's a high turnout and people express their views.
But maybe the ordinary man, I'm sorry, I mean, this may not be the popular opinion, but maybe the ordinary man would be okay with, seeing perhaps that kind of an extension. I'm not debating the constitutionality of it, but the question is, I mean, leaving the lawyers aside, I'm looking at what the ordinary man wants at this time.
Yeah.
Does the ordinary man not want the dollar going down? Does the ordinary man not want the economy doing better? Does the ordinary man not want overall peace, stability? And if the cost of that is going to be more time, already, it's not happening in 90 days.
Yeah, so it's presumptive for us to sit here and, sort of speculate on what the ordinary man wants. What democracy needs is elections. And if you don't want elections, at least allow us to choose our dictators. We're not happy working with these dictators who already overstayed their invite.
But there are no dictators right now. I mean, this is a
they're not, so a caretaker setup that's overstayed their invite, what do you call them?
Okay, that's a matter of opinion. I'm going to disagree with that, and I think Safiullah also would.
In my opinion, and I agree partly here that in a democratic system like Pakistan, where we have a constitution, where we have a social contract.
But we have a flawed democracy.
Agreed.
Has it worked for Pakistan till now? That's another debate.
Not at all. But the ordinary man wants a buy-in. So what elections do is they give catharsis to the ordinary man. They're like, oh yeah, okay, at least we got to vote. At least we got to say something. Whether their vote actually translates into anything at all is something that is beyond the ordinary man, or even me, if I'm, whoever, beyond all of us. But the reality is that it gives the ordinary man a stake in the system. The fact that they are participants. Now, there are many other ways of giving them a stake in the system as well. The elections might not be the only way of doing so.
But does the ordinary man at this time, I'm just saying that, of course, this is speculation, of course, it's trying to gauge the temperature generally, but I'm saying that, is it really about that now?
No, you're absolutely right.
The disillusionment in the society at this time, is it an all-time high? And I'm not talking about one political party, all political
parties. No, of course. So, you see, John Rawls and Amartya Sen, they worked on it. Any system is a means to an end. It's not an end itself. It's not even arguable or debatable that your parliamentary form of system has not worked or your democracy has failed to give service delivery, right? So, there is that frustration with your system of governance. But the solution is not to put a halt to it, right? you give more of democracy, you devolve more power, you empower the persons so that they can make their calls, make them participatory in the process.
So you have a parliament that is primarily, another scenario is a very hung parliament, for example.
Yeah.
And that is what the people want, and that is who they voted for.
So no,
I'll give you a scenario.
If I can quickly come.
Sure.
A hung parliament means no single party has been able to convince the voters in their ability to perform for them.
So what happens then?
So
You
they have
go
to-
for a re-election.
No. So this is one way of doing it. It's a democratic way of doing it. You don't get a clear majority, you call the elections. But here, this is where the parties come in and they need to work on their manifestos, their messaging that he mentioned earlier. They need to connect with the voters so that they get to a
Of course,
majority.
the political parties are going to do their best to
I'll
connect
give you
with
another scenario. Let's forget the parliamentary system, because whereas this constitution and what I'm saying is clearly out of the constitution, I'm not going to dovetail it by trying to suggest that it is within the realms of the law. But when we talk about systems and we talk about disillusioned populations and we talk about giving them some sort of a stake, that the one way of doing that is to do something that, for instance, Musharraf tried doing, which is bringing grassroots politics. So have local elections at the grassroots level, give them some sort of say in how they govern themselves at the lowest level, but keep the higher levels to yourself. Once again, this is not something that the parliamentary system of the constitution envisages, but it allows the people to have a say, and yet at the same time it allows us to get away from the bickering of the political parties at a higher level that we have seen for a very long time.
We cannot at this time, in all honesty, expect there to be that kind of a change unless we have elections, unless we have political parties who are in parliament, who agree to this.
And that's not going to happen, Mahrukh. So that's the problem. You see, right now, I'll tell you, there's some certain facts that we're facing. So Pakistan has the lowest FDI to GDP ratio in the world. It's not the lowest FDI that it has, but the FDI to GDP ratio. A country of this GDP has the lowest investments being made in it. It has the lowest FDI to population ratio in the world. All of this is attributed to the lack of continuance of policies, the lack of agreement on policies, and we have seen that, unfortunately, political parties are unable to agree on policies. That's what the problem is. I mean, we would love for all of them to get together and make a policy. That sounds like a fantastic thing to do.
But that's what's needed now.
But if they're not doing it, how do you do it? How do you take you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. And that's where the problem is. We have tried time and again with different iterations to the system of trying to get political leaders, popular leaders, so to speak, to sit down, discuss their matters, fix the system so that Pakistanis for once can have some breathing space, can have some economic development. That's not happening. And the economic cost is a real cost, Mahrukh. It's costing us deaths of our people. It's costing us stunted growth in our children, which is 40%. It is leading to us getting far behind. Economically, Pakistan is now one of the worst performing economies. So
as far as Mia Saab's return is concerned, when he comes, he talks to the people. Politically speaking, I think it will be the start of a momentum, so to speak, with all political parties gearing up, building of momentum, so to speak. And perhaps there will be a more clearer indication of how and what we are going to be seeing in the parliament. Because of course the PMLN has been saying that this is that a page turner, table turner, that one event, of course, that they have been hoping for and waiting for Mia Saab to return, and also the rumor mongering and a lot that was being said that he will not return, it will not follow. This is that moment that I think the PMLN and its second tier leadership have been waiting for. So of course his return will also show how and what the table is going to look like, and the placing of it, the people's reaction to it, how the people respond to it, the crowd at all. Do you think it's going to have some bearing on how the momentum is built when he's received?
No, it's great that he's coming back. It's good for politics in Pakistan. He represents a sizable majority, has represented a sizable majority, the only prime minister to secure 2/3 in our parliamentary form of democracy, still has massive following in Punjab and within KP Hazara region. So it's good that he's back. He's an important player, an important stakeholder for this country and its politics. And of course, with his return, I really hope that we see a new era in our politics.
And maybe more a politics of tolerance that we've all been hoping for with Mia Saab. Of course, he's been known as a politician who's fairly tolerant. His mediocre stance, it's never been extremist. One has to contend after the recent events that we have unfortunately
his opponents wouldn't
seen.
agree with that, but
thank you so much for being with us, Ammar Ziauddin, Barrister Safiullah, Ghauri. Thank you for your time. I'm going to move on and talk about the situation as far as Palestine is concerned. Of course, the situation has now moved away from genocide. It has moved away from ethnic cleansing and reached a level of total erasure. We have with me Dr. Sabir Abu Maryam, who's Secretary General, Palestine Foundation, Pakistan. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Sabir, there are no words for what's happening in Palestine at this time. Of course, the bombing of the church that we saw, the images are horrific all over the world. It has now surpassed a sense of reality also. How are you now looking at what's happening and overall, the world and the way that it's watching? We've also seen countries, take, unfortunately, a stand that is, inhumane in this case.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for your precious question and time for the cause of Palestine. The cause of Palestine, has no doubt, it is a cause of humanity. And we are witnessing that in Gaza Strip, the Zionist regime of Israel has carrying out genocide of the Palestinian people, not only in last 14 days, but we are witnessing in 75 years. There is a 75 years long history as Palestinians are suffering, Palestinians are occupied by the Zionist regime. And in Gaza Strip, we know very well that since 2007 to till now, almost 16 years, there is a siege, there is a besiege, and no way to send the life, no any way to rescue the people, to rescue the life of the innocent people of Gaza. They don't have any way to go to Egypt. They don't have any way to come to occupied Palestine or West Bank, but they are struck. So now, so from the last 14 days, Israeli war crimes are up and high. But unfortunately, the international community, which is the very strong holder of human rights slogan, they are keeping criminal silence over the genocide of Palestinian oppressed people. Even we are observing that the Muslim nations, Muslim rulers, they are also keeping silent, and they are also giving statements. Now, this time is not only for the statements, but this time needs us to become a practical way. So I demand from your program, from your reference, that the OIC and the Arab rulers and countries, they must announce oil embargo against the Zionist regime, because all powers, all international powers, including America, British, and others, they are standing behind and beside the Zionist regime on this genocide of Gaza. So why we are not standing with our Palestinian brethren? This is a good sign from Pakistan that we heard a news that an aeroplane has been landed in Egypt with the aid and with the food and some item. This is a good sign. I do appeal from all Muslim governments, countries, and regimes. They must follow this path, and they must stand up with the Palestinian brethren, and they must support financially and food items, medical aid. This is the need of time. And we also we should support our Palestinian brethren and Islamic Jihad, Hamas.
Dr. Sabir, overall, as far as conflict, we are looking at, it's often oversimplified as far as the Israel and Palestinian conflict is concerned, and Israel, the portrait of Israel as a peace-loving country, there's a narrative that is being built. We saw what happened even with the US. There is content, incorrect, inaccurate, false content is being used to perpetuate that propaganda. It's not just one country, like you said. It's multiple countries that are towing this agenda. But this latest bombing also, do you think, as far as Christians are concerned, it's not just Muslims at this time? Do you think it's going to lead to perhaps some kind of, a reaction that we will see across the board now?
Of course, you are right. Not only Christian, but also Jews are victims of the Zionism. As you know that in America, in United States, hundreds and thousands of Jews, they are living in America and they are anti-Zionist. Their slogan is that Palestine must be free, Palestine should be free. And they believe that the Israel is an illegitimate state. Their organization name is Netori Karta, and your listener and your observer, they must Google and they must know about them. They are against Zionists. And same in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, in West Bank, Christians are suffering from the crime, from the different heinous crimes by the Zionist regime. Sometime on the Christmas day, we have proofs, we have a history that Zionist regime never allowed to Christian to enter the West Bank, to enter the Jerusalem, and to participate in the Christmas activities. So this is Zionism. Zionism is a threat to all over the humanity, including all religion, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and in the broad way, they are enemy. They are enemies of humanity, and we are witnessing in Gaza, in Palestine. Why Israel bombing in Syria? Why Israel bombing some other areas? Because they don't have morality. They don't have any ethical politics. So they are trying to hold the region by the power, but they are still failed. And Palestinian brethren and Palestinian resistance still steadfast, and they are standing against the oppressors. So it is the duty of all human beings that to must stand with oppressed people, whether Christian, whether Jews, whether Muslim, because they all are victims by the Zionist and the Zionism and the Zionist
Dr.
regime.
Sabir, as far as procurement of aid is concerned, like you said, finally a plane has been allowed to land. There were a lot of problems even for this aid to reach the Palestinian people. Is there more headway there? Is it, because there are countries all over who are also wanting to give aid, who've also, made attempts. Is it becoming easier now?
Yes, it is difficult now, and there are many problems inside the Egypt. So we demand from Egyptian government, to must collaborate, to must facilitate these kind of activities from the Rafah crossing, because this is the time. This is the time of unity. Why the 52 states of United States called United States, and why we 57 Muslim and Arab states, why we are not United States? So this is the time of unity. We should come forward and together for the cause of Palestine, for the cause of these innocent people. They are under siege, they are under killing, they are under fire, and you know that 2 days before, in the hospital, in a single attack, more than 3,000 maximum innocent Palestinians were martyred. So this is the time of Muslim and Arab rulers to must together unity and to stand with the...
Thank you so much, Dr. Sabir. I think that you've summed it up. That's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, for updating us on what the situation is as far as the latest situation in Gaza, and as far as aid is concerned, as far as the overall state of affairs is concerned. But one thing I think I would like to leave the audience with, that perhaps it is a time for unity across the board. We need the Muslim countries to come together at this time, and perhaps like never before, in aid and to help those innocent people who are suffering at this time. This is that time which calls for across the board unity. Like Dr. Sabir said, perhaps we can all find it in ourselves as countries, as nations, to come together for that cause. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.